Anybody else?
It's 10 o'clock. We will start the budget hearing for Parks and Recreation. Tim?
Good morning.
Over to you.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation. So I had the pleasure of watching some of the presentations yesterday, so I know time can be of the essence, so I'm going to jump right in. I want to start off a little bit, just briefly touching on some of the department challenges. Obviously, deferred maintenance is something that we deal with now, and we'll always be dealing with deferred maintenance. But some of the highlights there, the mini train and the tracks, are something we're going to have to look at here probably in the near future. Obviously, our parks and community centers. Equipment replacement, we have been able to do some equipment replacement over the last few years, but we'd like to continue that trend. Staffing is a little bit more complicated. We still find that we're, for example, we had Lyle Baus was our grounds maintenance supervisor for many years, and he retired in February. And we still haven't been able to fill that position. So, and it really boils down to, quite honestly, what we're paying those folks. So that's an issue. Capers compliance, which we'll talk about more as we move through this. And then the Curtis shop relocation, just keeping that on the forefront here. We are going to need to move that fleet shop at some point. It seems like there is some momentum to park development down there, and I don't want the county or certainly Parks and Recreation standing in the way of that progress. So with that, I'll jump into notable increases for our 2022 budget. I want to start with capers. So I know you've got a copy of our budget proposal, and you've seen the increases, and the majority of those increases are in our MSA 1 lines, our salaries and that area, and a lot of that has to do with capers. So capers has been very patient and very helpful with us and the county, trying to get us up to compliance. Basically what this boils down to is we've really had to take a hard look at our seasonal part-time staff, and how many hours they work, and whether they should be getting benefits and those sort of things, and participating in capers. So when it was all said and done, that has affected several of the lines here, and accounts for a little over $545,000 increase. That's over half of what the increase in this section anyway. The other areas of note are our workers' compensation insurance went up quite a bit, and my understanding, and Betty can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's based on a 3-year average of our claims, so that jumped up quite a bit, almost $67,000. And that's really the bulk of that, and then regular just salary increases, wage increases for staff. So there's a lot there in that section. If there's any questions about any of that, I'd be happy to take those now before I move forward.
Tim, when it comes to your intermittent employees and looking at that capers contribution, do you believe that you are at the right level of intermittent employees? Should we have our intermittent employees go to full-time employee status with full benefits, or should we look at contracting out more services? I mean, there's really three options.
Well, I'll be honest with you, all of the above. I mean, we, as part of this budget, we did increase our contracts for mowing because of this, so that we didn't have to make any adjustments or increases for what Jeremy and his staff are doing. There are some of these staff that we are recommending go to full-time, and it's mainly in our community centers. They're year-round operations, and for the most part, we have one full-time staff person in these, and so we are recommending that some of them get elevated. So we're kind of doing a mix, all of those things.
I know that there's always concern about when we have contractual services, is it a race to the bottom? Are you getting less for than what you would have if they were your own employee?
Right.
And I know that sometimes the answer is, well, if they don't do a good job, then we can fire them or we can not pay them.
Right.
But are we seeing are we getting the best of our bang for our buck, so to speak?
I believe we are. I mean, I think that I'm real happy with the vendors that we're using right now, and I think they've all been very responsive. And then we have a staff person whose job, among other things, is to travel around and make sure they're doing what we want them to do. And we also have in these most recent contracts started to pull the landscaping beds out of those agreements, because I think that's where they tended to not have enough time to really spend on those beds. So we're doing more of those in-house. But yeah, I think I like where we are. I like having the mix. I don't want to count 100% on contractors, because you never know. Well, if they quit tomorrow, I got to make sure that I can cover that, you know. So I like the mix where we are, and we're actually a little bit over 50% contracted now as far as mowing.
And then when it comes to places like the Old Prairie Town, we rely very heavily on volunteer services.
We do.
And so are we doing a good job continuing to recruit new volunteers to come in? And are there other areas where we could have volunteers that would be able to kind of lift the load of some of those intermittent employees?
Yeah, we rely heavily on volunteers, and you mentioned Old Prairie Town, and specifically Ward Mead Botanical Gardens, and I'll be honest with you, if our volunteers got up and left tomorrow at Ward Mead, we'd be in a world of trouble. You know, they do a lot of work there, and we rely heavily on them, and not quite as heavily at Ted Inslee Gardens, but we've got a great group of people working out there too. So unfortunately, we're about to come up before the commission to ask to fill our volunteer coordinator position, because our current volunteer coordinator just left. But yeah, I think we're doing a good job there, and I think it's wise for us to recruit and rely on volunteers in instances like those where we can.
Yeah,
Commissioner Rippon?
yeah, I just go back to Ward Mead. I think we need somebody there that's more full-time.
Yeah.
You know, the volunteers, they get worn out after a while, and if they see they're doing all the work and you don't have somebody out
Sure,
there,
sure.
that starts to wear on them. Then I wanted to ask too about did we have many workman's comp claims last year from?
I don't have the stats in front of me,
I know
but
that.
yes, of course, we never want to have workman comp
Sure.
claim, you know, so obviously they've gone up, or our rates wouldn't be going
Yeah.
up. So we have talked a lot in-house about training and trying to make sure we're doing what we can to prevent those things, making sure staff are getting adequate safety training and those sorts of things. So we're trying to come at it from that angle. But yes, obviously, I think we've increased, and we don't like that trend.
Did we use guys from like these manpower organizations where the responsibility for workman's comp claim falls back on them, people that provide?
We don't do that a lot, no.
Okay.
I mean, it's typically our folks.
I know at one time we were hiring a number of people from those organizations because they did.
Yeah.
I mean, one workman's comp claim would pay the difference a lot of times,
Right.
and
Okay.
what we were paying them. But it might be something to look at.
Commissioner Rippon, if I can answer that
Sure.
a little bit. What I do is I look at the last 3 years of workers' comp claims compared to, you know, the budget as a percentage of the budget, and then I compare that to what our overall total is countywide. And then those departments that are, and usually it's always the same same few departments that are consistently have more claims because their work is more dangerous, you know. Then those pay an additional amount towards the workers' comp fund, because we are self-insured for workers' comp. So they pay an additional amount based on their claims. It's an additional percentage, but it's based on their actual claims that have been paid.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on. Okay, if we get down to the next section of the budget, really the biggest increase in that area is our contractual services. And so I mentioned, as part of the CAPERS compliance, we've contracted out more of our mowing. We also inherited a lot of contracts, not a lot, but a few for Great Overland Station. We've added some copiers. We've done some things here and there that have increased that section. But the bulk of it is our grounds maintenance mowing contract. So it's $248,000. And then the next is utilities. And I think I heard corrections yesterday talk about how their utility rates have gone up, and we're seeing the same thing. So water alone is, we're projecting almost a $50,000 increase for next year. So that's really the bulk of the increases in that area. And then I'll just move on here to the next section. But The next would be equipment leases, and that is one that, just, to be honest and very transparent, is one that we've tried to, we want to increase. It's not one we have to. It's one that we've asked for an additional $60,000 to do vehicle leases. And frankly, it's because really the timing. I mean, our vehicle lease program has been a godsend. And right now, if we lease a Ford F-150 and use it for a year and sell it back, we actually end up with more money than we did when we started. About $4,500, I think, was the total that we're actually making on that transaction. And so meanwhile, we have a nice fleet of newer vehicles, but then we also have a large section of really old vehicles, mid-90s and older, with we're constantly repairing. They're just not as efficient, and we'd like to at some point try to increase those leases and ultimately update the fleet. So, but in full transparency, like I said, we've got a lot of things in this budget that, capers is something we're being forced to deal with. This is a want, so keep that in mind. We'd love to have that happen. And then last, but certainly not least, let's talk a little bit about lifeguards and seasonal staff. So I know that we've been talking a lot about it lately, and you've been hearing a lot about it. So we have about a little over 500 part-time staff. And of those 500, about approximately 70% make less than $10 an hour. And so as we studied the lifeguard situation and we've looked at what other communities are paying, it's anywhere between where we are and $10 an hour is sort of the starting wage. If we were to raise all of our guards next year to $10 minimum starting wage, with the benefits that would be involved in that, that's $125,234 that we would be adding to our budget. If we wanted to go a step further and do all of our intermittent staff and just make $10 sort of our baseline minimum wage, that would add $416,181. So you can see if we start to do that, and then we also deal with CAPERS compliance, we're easily getting up to close to $1 million in increases for seasonal staff. I would love to be in a position to do all of our staff at $10 an hour, but I don't know whether that's realistic or not. If we could do that, I think that would be the best course of action. If we don't feel like that we can accomplish that, then I would definitely want to look at the guards and try to get them up to 10. If we find that maybe even that isn't doable, then I would come back with maybe a phased approach where maybe we bumped them up to 9 next year and 10 the following year. Something, but we need to address it. Obviously, hiring lifeguards is not just a Shawnee County problem; it's a national problem. But we really do rely on them. We rely on them, and they save lives. I don't, not to over dramatize it, but we put them in a position where we really give them a lot of responsibility, and I think we need to pay them accordingly. So that's it for the budget. Any questions there before we move on to CIP?
Questions, Betty?
I'd just like to make a comment for the commissioners. If you look on Form E, that shows you the additional cost for the CAPERS transition.
Yes.
And that is $332,816. We talked about that yesterday, and he's talked about it also. That I have included in the flat budget for their department, because that is a requirement. So when I calculated the flat budget, I included that in there.
Okay.
Tim, I'd like to take a moment and just ask a couple questions about
Sure.
your Parks Police.
Yeah.
Parks Police has kind of come up from time to time over the years about, do we need a Parks Police Department, or would we be better suited with a park ranger, where their primary job would be securing doors, picking up money,
Right.
those sorts of things, as opposed to a law enforcement personnel.
Right.
Have we done a real thorough evaluation of the Parks Police? And if you were to change it from Parks Police to a Park Ranger, would you be able to offset some of those costs that you were looking at? Because those are full-time employees, plus the equipment and the training that they
Right,
have.
Right. I tell you what I have done. I haven't done an exhaustive study, no. I did talk with the chief of the Park Police in Johnson County. And I asked him that question about, and I was very honest, that I was interested in maybe transitioning from Park Police to a Ranger type situation. And he, if I remember correctly, said they used to be that way and they went to Park Police because in his words, I can't quote him exactly, but his point was when a Park Police officer rolls up, there's no question about why they're there or what their responsibilities are. A Ranger, they didn't get the respect, basically, that the police person did. And that's why they ultimately went away from that and went to Park Police. I will tell you that we have honestly made a pretty big investment since I've been here in the Park Police. They now have computers in their car so they can communicate on the spot with dispatch, just like all the other law enforcement officials. We have body cameras that they're wearing. We've gotten some basic equipment that they lacked before. Things as simple as the measuring wheels, so you can go out when you work an accident and actually do it the right way. So I feel like we've made some strides over the last couple of years, and I can tell you this, I rely on them a lot. I mean, when we have problems in the evening or late at night or whatever it is, that's my first call. They're very responsive. And my experience with them so far has been that they've been very professional. So,
My concern was not that they aren't professional, but you have 110, give or take, parks, and you have a staff of, less than 20.
less than 5.
But trying to cover that many parks on any given weekend.
Right,
If you were to have a fight at Blaisdell Pool,
right.
and then you were to have a accident at Lake Shawnee,
Yes, you're absolutely right. Most of the time, 90% of the time, probably 99% of the time, we only have one officer on duty. And there's no way he can cover all those. That just doesn't happen. And we've talked about that. I said I don't want to put them in a position where they're doomed to fail. And so we have talked about where they spend their time, where they should be spending their time. I don't want them out trying to catch people that are running stop signs, in residential neighborhoods. Stick in our parks. We're fortunate to have a great relationship, really, with the Sheriff's Department and Topeka Police Department. So they work very well with us. And in that situation like you described, that's what would happen. I mean, they would pitch in, they would help out, and that happens a lot more than you think. So, yes, there's no way we would have to. I believe Johnson County had something like, I don't want to quote, but it was a lot. I mean, they were like in the 50, 60 officer range.
right?
We're never going to be there, but I think it is nice to have somebody to respond when those emergencies happen.
Okay. Any other questions regarding staffing or the equipment leases?
No.
Nope. All right.
All right.
Capital improvement plan.
We will jump into capital improvement plan. So this is not what you have. You have the official list of what we put in, but I wanted to throw this up here because it's really the one that I've been working off of, and it really, in my mind, prioritizes the things that we think are the most important. So I'll just start at the top and kind of work through here fairly quickly. Our ADA transition plan and implementation. So as you know, we're going out for the plan now. I think there'll be an expectation that once that plan comes back that we see some improvements. Whether it's $500,000 worth or not, I think we do need to start implementing that plan as soon as we can. The Rieger Complex retaining wall, that's been on here for a while. Quite honestly, if we don't do it through this, I think it's to the point where we'll do it some other way, because it needs to be done. So I would not expect to see that on this list next year regardless. And as you move down the list here, the community center at Oakland, we've talked about that for a while. We want to do some design services to renovate that park, and then hopefully that will spur a larger renovation or we'll renovate the community center, but that'll spur a larger project to do the entire park. Parks and playgrounds, last year you gave us a little under $200,000 to do that. We'd like to continue that. Did talk about that extensively with my advisory board, and that's where the $500,000 figure came from. They feel like that's appropriate. I can tell you we'll spend it if that's what we're able to get, and the parks obviously could use it. Park maintenance equipment replacement, so this is equipment, not vehicles. This would be the tools that they're using out in the field. Parks, roads, and parking lots, that's a big one. You know, we have a lot of parking lots and a lot of roads that need attention. And the longer they don't receive it, the worse it's going to get. So that's something that we need to spend a little more time on. And we use 3R money now, you know, so we're not just letting them go. But I'm thinking right off the top of my head, the parking lot at Betty Phillips Park is almost non-existent. That's not that bad, but it's pretty bad, you know, and there's others like it. So trail enhancements, obviously trails so popular here, and I'm just really proud of the trail system. I can't take a lot of credit for it. Most of it was here before I got here, but it's an amazing trail system. It really is. I don't know that we think about it that much, but it is really nice, and it takes a lot to keep it up. Family parks, we moved down the list, family park, and then I put Deer Creek Extension right under there because we've talked about those two projects a lot together at the same time. The number in there for Deer Creek Extension, 623,300, that's what we need. That's the number. What we owe now, or have to pay back, I think is my understanding, is $542,000. We put in a 15% contingency of $81,300 because that project, every time we turn around, something's happened. So we put in a little extra money, but that I stuck it right under Family Park because we've talked about it as part of the Family Park project. If we do bond money, that we would spend some of that money to finish the Deer Creek extension. Family Park, that $7,500,000 number. Obviously arbitrary on what we decide we want to do. You have received the first phase recommendations that we worked on with the advisory board, and I think that number there is right in line with those, pretty close. So anyway, Dornwood baseball field renovations phase 2. So that's field renovations. We obviously this amount wouldn't cover all those things, but projects that are getting ready that we still need to do there, some additional field renovations, concession stand, restroom, probably a shelter, and parking lot improvements. So I've only listed 2022 here on this list. We have more for this further down the road. Every year we're asking for more. And then finally, the last one on the list is the Lake Shawnee campground. And that's to do some work. Last year we asked to go out for an RFP to do design services, or we wanted to do, design services to do a renovation at the campground. And I believe Commissioner Mays said, is that something you could do in-house? And I said, yes, that is something we could do in-house. And we've been doing it. So we've been utilizing PEC, which is our trade service vendor. But we have come up with a plan. And I think it's a great one. And we would like to see a little bit of money to start moving forward on that. Obviously, you know, all the revenue that we generate there goes into our revolving fund, and we can continue to put money back into the campground. So that's a great project. But that's going through the list. What kind of questions do you have? How can I answer any questions?
Tim, one thing you don't have on your list, we've invested quite a bit of money into filters, into the Lake Shawnee, trying to capture the algae, remove the algae, limit the algae, but you don't have anything on your capital improvement plan on that. Are those things working? Are we?
They are working, and I believe on let's see, where's milfoil on here? We don't have milfoil on this year. I think we were doing it every other year.
Okay.
So It would be a next year.
That was just one I hadn't saw, so.
Yeah.
The campground improvements, one of the things I always hear is there's not enough places for, for hookups and for
Yeah.
sewage disposal and things like that. Does that address a lot of?
It is. I don't know, John, if you want to talk at all briefly on, not to put you on the spot, but I know John and Chris Curtis, our park planner, have been working on it, and I know, I can speak on it, but I don't know how intelligently I can speak on it. But I do know that this section right here would be the first phase, is that right?
John Boyd. Yeah, those are actually new spots that are parallel there to the West Edge Road. This plan obviously would be in phases, would completely redo the plumbing so that there would be trailer hookups at each campsite, renewing the electricity, the plumbing, sewer, and creating new pull-throughs. We don't really have pull-throughs at the campground at this point in time. That's kind of an old design that wasn't used back when this campground was actually built. So now we've got bigger rigs that are coming in, and they need to be able to pull through to actually get in and out of the structures. We've added a little bit of play features, potentially down in the future, cabin sites out on that peninsula there at the top of the top. There's
Dog park.
walking trail, dog park, ropes courses down there by the new parking lot at the swim beach area of the campground, with a perimeter trail, open air shelters along that trail perimeter around the campground as well.
Currently, we just have one sewage disposal.
One grinders, yeah.
Yeah, so
And
that'll
that's
be a
for the
huge improvement.
restrooms in the campground. There is no hookups in the campground. They
Okay.
have to pull their trailers out to do dump stations.
Okay, all right.
I think it's a fabulous plan, and obviously, as John said, it's something that would have to be implemented over many years. I mean, it'd definitely have to be a phased-in approach, but, yeah, it would make that, it would make that a lot better.
And the other,
Oops, sorry. Yeah.
did you-
Oh, no, that's right, go ahead, Commissioner.
the saloon at Old Prairie, you moved that to 23?
I did, yes.
Okay.
Saloon at Old Prairie Town, it is right now on 2024, but we can do something about that if we
All
want to.
right, I know last year it was 22, 23 or something, and I didn't know.
It may still be. Let me look at,
Where it landed.
Did the Great Overland Station maybe kind of change that a little
And
bit?
I think they moved it back a year for that, but I know they've raised a lot of money out there for that particular project.
right.
And so I think they were looking some kind of commitment from us and, show that we have it on the CIP. So, all right.
Betty?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
On the Lake Shawnee campground,
Yeah.
this says existing enterprise funds. Are you showing that would come out of the enterprise funds, or is that a cap?
I apologize. No, I'm not. That shouldn't be on there. Yeah.
Okay. So the enterprise fund would cover, now at the time the enterprise funds were set up, it was to be all encompassing.
It could. I mean, and
I'm just-
let me backtrack. Yes, when I started this out, that was my thinking, that's probably where it should go, and it probably is. But I fear that we're putting ourselves in a situation here and like at Cypress Ridge, where if we rely on the enterprise fund to do these, I don't know that it'll ever generate enough money to do it. If we want to build a new clubhouse at Cypress Ridge, we can go in and build a new green like we're doing and knock that out, no problem. But to build a $1 million clubhouse, I don't know that we'll ever have enough money in those funds to do it. And I worry about what that does really to the infrastructure of the facilities, I guess, that we're trying to maintain. How long do we let them go before we have to do something other than rely on revolving fund or enterprise fund to take care of it?
So are you thinking moving those back into the general fund rather than keeping them as a standalone?
I would like to find another way to do it where we define what, maybe look at what we define as we want to pay out of the revolving fund. Because I think we can do a lot of things. And I like that, quite honestly, just to be transparent, I like the flexibility of being able to do it. I just know moving forward, these big capital improvement projects, I don't think I can do out of that fund. So I want my cake and I want to be able to eat it too.
That's what I was going to.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I wish I had a better answer, but just to be honest, that's my concern.
Commissioner Mays?
Tim, one thing we haven't mentioned, at least if we did, I didn't catch it, was costs over bathrooms.
Yeah.
Could you speak to that, or are
So-
we getting the grant money?
We are. We received the grant money. Well, we don't have it yet, but we were
Okay.
awarded the grant. We met with Shirley Construction. The price for the project went up about $40,000, a little over $40,000. I did talk with Commissioner Cook yesterday about this. We are going to move forward and recommend that we absorb that money or that additional cost. So I signed a memo and a contract yesterday, so you'll be seeing those relatively quick. And we'll be moving ahead.
And when is that construction scheduled to start?
Well, we won't know until we sign the contract,
Oh,
but
okay.
but Shirley, actually, I sat in the meeting with Shirley, and they thought they could get started right away. So I
Okay.
think it could happen.
Well, make sure you work with the tennis association to
I don't think I
get
have
the
a choice.
timing, get the timing right on.
We've been talking to them on a regular basis, so they're up to speed
Okay.
where we're at.
You know, while we're talking about tennis, pickleball. I know there's been a lot of talk about
Yeah.
what happened, rather than build a big pickleball facility at Family Park, would it be better if it was at Felker? And where it's a sports complex anyway, to begin with. And but I don't know, as pickleball, do they have enough of an organization that a person can talk to and
They're trying to organize right now.
Yeah.
They're trying to create some sort of formal organization.
because I think it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways to put it into Felker. But you know, I know they've got, right now, they're all talking about
Yeah.
Family Park, but I don't know if that's the best solution, I don't know. But it would be nice if they had an organization we could
Right.
talk to
I mean, they have a loose-knit organization, but they don't have anything really structured. And I know that the Topeka Tennis has been talking to them and trying to help them form an
Right.
organization. I've also offered Parks for All Foundation as a way for them to do that. They could join the Parks for All Foundation, and by doing that, they could formalize that group and then be part of what we do. And I really like that solution. But I think what you really have to think about and talk about here is the difference between tennis and pickleball. I mean, tennis, I don't know of another community, I'm sure there is one, but I don't know of any other pickleball organization that operates the way Topeka Tennis does. They typically aren't organized, and they show up, they play pickleball, they leave. It's not a club, so to speak. So I kind of liken it to a basketball court. We don't make all the basketball players in town organize so that we can build a basketball court or a basketball complex. I know we're talking about building a complex, so it's a little different. But my concern is I don't ever see them being at the level of Topeka Tennis as far as an organization. I could be wrong. This is just, I'm telling you my gut feeling about it. I think pickleball courts would be great at either location. But I think that the argument that it would be cheaper at one versus the other, I don't know is accurate.
No, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I know you didn't say that, but I've heard that from other groups.
Yeah.
We've got infrastructure at both locations, we've got parking lots at both locations, so we could do it either place. I don't want to speak for either group, but I know they both have strong feelings, one way or the other, so.
Other questions for Tim? All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Remember, it's National Parks and Recreation Month, so you have to approve this.
We'll get right on
I
that.
don't make the rules.
We'll address it in
Budget won't be
August.
approved till next month.
Okay, oh, it won't be in July, will it? Darn it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Betty, Extension Council is next. They
You have to read these.
I
They're at 10:30, aren't they?
Yeah, I hadn't heard.
Are they out there in the hall?
They might be
Okay,
sitting out.
all right, they're out waiting for us. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I hadn't heard anything that they weren't coming.
Delete.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill, he's really good at calling you back. I will. I'll find out. I'll let you know by the end of the day.
Okay. If you don't.
One down.
Yeah, and this is a shorter day.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be out here by noon. and-
Okay, we're just gonna jump right in.
We are here
I don't
for
see
the
why not.
Shawnee County Extension. Candace,
Awesome.
you're up.
Awesome. Do I get 5 minutes added to the end of my
Absolutely.
time? Okay. Just to make sure I don't go double speed. I'll go fast enough. So good morning, Commissioners. I'm Candace Mearpool, Director for the Shawnee County Extension Office and interim 4-H agent. I am going to introduce the rest of the Extension agents during our short presentation, but I did want to introduce our board members that are here today. Angela Dake is our board chair, and Barbara Coltis is our board secretary. And Angela will make some statements after our presentation, but I wanted to thank them both for taking their morning to come down and support us. So this year, with our presentation, I really wanted to highlight some of the best work that our agents have done, and I asked them to put forward the thing that they're most proud of from this last year, and I really hope I convey their success well. But first, I do want to talk about the purpose and focus of the Shawnee County Extension Office. In 1914, the Smith-Lever Act created the Extension Service to all land-grant universities. K-State University is the state of Kansas's land-grant university. And the purpose in 1914 was to provide research-based education to improve the lives of every resident. That is still our purpose today. We're connected to a national network of extension resources, and we utilize those resources to benefit the residents of Shawnee County. While our purpose is research-based education to improve people's lives, unfortunately, we can't cover everything. So Extension focuses on the 5 grand challenges across the state that was developed with the Kansas Association of Counties to make sure what K-State is researching is what our state needs. Those 5 grand challenges are water, global food systems, health, developing tomorrow's leaders, and community vitality. Agents work across these grand challenges. For example, global food systems. Aerial and horticulture addresses this by helping people feed themselves and sell produce locally from their gardens so American farmers can distribute more widely. Susan in Family and Consumer Sciences answers questions daily about keeping our food safe to eat, from cooking, preserving, and so she is fighting food waste. Leroy in agriculture helps local farmers and ranchers produce more, all the while using less natural resources. Lisa, with expanded food and nutrition, with the help of Lee Allen from Shawnee County Planning Department, developed and maintains a food map for Shawnee County that has the food banks and distribution sites for our residents, helping those that may live in a food desert in our community. 4-H helps in this area by teaching youth in the community about where their food comes from, how to start a garden, and educating them on the food challenges in our community so that they can do service projects at food banks or in community gardens. So as you can see, with our 5 grand challenges, the agents can address these all from their particular area. Okay, now the fun stuff. I'm going to highlight our agents and the programs that they wanted to show you from this year. So first up, Ariel Whiteley-Knoll, give her a little wave, our horticulture agent. At a time when things were screeching to a halt, she and the Master Gardener volunteers still answered 624 horticulture questions through our response line. People were stuck at home and they had lawn and gardening questions. Ariel made sure that those got answered. And as you can see, they've already answered 281 from April to June. Last year, our horticulture team hosted 20 educational webinars with a total of 617 participants. K-State has also done some virtual education, and 322 of those participants were from Shawnee County. Master Gardeners have also been busy and have received over $9,000 in grants and donations to further their educational efforts. They've put QR codes in 2 of their demonstration gardens, and now when you wonder what that pretty plant is, you can whip out your smartphone, scan the QR code, and it will tell you all about it. Lisa is our expanded food and nutrition agent. And she and her staff last year enrolled 166 families in their federally funded program, including 122 pregnant clients. You can see they had amazing outcomes, like 97% improving the quality of their diet and 95% improving budgeting their food dollars. Like many others, Lisa and her staff had to learn how to offer their education virtually and make sure it was still an interactive learning environment. Not an easy task, but they did it. Lisa's SNAP Ed program is also improving people's access to fresh foods. The SNAP Ed assists community gardens with training and resources, and extra produce is being donated to food insecure members of our community. And then in a partnership with Heartland Healthy Neighborhoods Coalition, they are increasing the farmers markets that accept SNAP EBT cards and securing funding to enhance fruit and vegetable purchases by low-income customers. Leroy Russell is our agriculture agent in Shawnee County, and he is very responsive to the needs of our crop and livestock producers in Shawnee County. The #1 driver of the economy in Shawnee County is agriculture and agribusiness, and all K-State research education information is passed to our local farmers and ranchers through our extension office. Agriculture has a direct output of $1.83 billion per year in Shawnee County and supports over 9,000 jobs in the county. We have 847 farms totaling over 200,000 acres of farm and ranch ground. And because of research that the research system is doing, corn production has increased more than 4 times since 1950, from 29 bushel per acre to 128. And we also have 2 K-State research farms in Shawnee County that do up to 30 test plots a year covering seeding rates, cover crops, varieties, all kinds of research, fertilizer, chemicals, planting times and dates, all to improve our production and efficiency for our local farmers. The program Leroy wanted to highlight was one that he did just this June, where he had 29 youth get certified to work on non-family farms, which is a requirement for youth 14 to 16 years old. They're taught how to use tractors, PTO equipment, ATVs, grain storage safety, and safe livestock handling. Shawnee County has had no serious accidents from certified youth through this program. Susan Fangman is our Family and Consumer Sciences agent, and this title carries many program areas. Just some of the programs she gives leadership to are Walk Kansas, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, Food Preservation and Food Safety, and Senior Health Insurance Counseling. And the program she wanted to highlight was the work that she does as a senior health insurance counselor. This last year, she did 31 new to Medicare counseling appointments and over 204 Medicare Part D open enrollment appointments. And again, like everybody else, she had to figure out a new way to do this in a time when we weren't meeting face-to-face. She's helped clients save over $78,000. And then in addition to that, this is not an easy system, and there is great value for her taking the new to Medicare clients through that process. And then I spent the majority of my year working in 4-H. And so this year, 4-H was 11 4-H community clubs across Shawnee County. We had 300 enrolled members. We had 1,680 students take part in 4-H school enrichment programs like ants, butterflies, chicken embryology. Those were offered to all our county schools. And then we had 92 certified 4-H volunteers serving over 1,100 hours. And the program I wanted to highlight was camp. Last year, we did offer a virtual summer camp. As you can imagine, it wasn't the same, but we did want to give the kids something. But with a few accommodations, we were able to go to Rock Springs. We just got back on Sunday, and we had 16 campers and 10 counselors, which is actually under half of what we normally take, but that was one of the accommodations. Rock Springs couldn't have us fill the cabins like we normally do. While the youth will tell you about the canoes, the swimming pool, and horseback riding, camp actually provides education in teamwork, wildlife knowledge, independence, resilience, and respect. Okay, so our budget request. Dun, 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 dun. The extension is asking for a flat budget of $601,748 for 2022. We've adjusted our budget lines that we're still seeing some savings from the COVID-19 pandemic and adding those to lines where we did have a need. We want to be a good fiscal partner, and we believe that us doing that is being a good partner with our funders. Information was included with the budget packet that I submitted, but I like it because it illustrates, one, the county is our biggest funding partner, and we do rely on you heavily to offer our programs. But wherever our funding comes from, 100% of it is used for the residents of Shawnee County. So we take all the other funding with yours and benefit Shawnee County. And then lastly, I just have to thank you for your support and what you do for the programs that we offer for Shawnee County residents. And then I'm going to have Angela come say some words as our board chair, and then after that, I'll take your questions.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Angela Dake, and I am the proud owner of Hidden Hill Farms in Auburn, Kansas, and a proud supporter of the K-State Shawnee County Research and Extension Program. I thought I'd just take a couple of minutes and just highlight the ways that the Research and Extension Program helped me personally and helped my farm personally. And I know from my story, there are hundreds and hundreds of other stories of people that have been helped and assisted throughout our county by this fabulous agency and the amazing agents that work for this this organization. My husband and I purchased a farm, an 80-acre farm in Auburn, and I looked up at God and said, "Are you looking at my birth certificate at all? With all this work that's coming my way?" And he said, "No, just get on with it." So the first thing that we did was said, "Well, what are we going to do with the land?" and so on and so forth. And of course, that we reached out to Leroy for his experience in agriculture, and he started us on some soil testing and helped us figure out what the strengths of the land were and what the weaknesses of the land were, and we were off and running. And as we proceeded, anytime that we had a question, we would get a hold of the extension. They would either have materials or some kind of information. We decided to build a high tunnel, and they set us in connection with the experts with the high tunnels, which are over in Olathe. And so there was always a way to find an answer for us through the Research and Extension Office. And so after a couple of years, I really felt called that since I had the time, I retired from teaching, and then I had a little bit more time to both farm and teach. I thought I need to let go of something. It became clear to me that I personally had better time to come alongside and support in some way, so I became a member of the program development for the Agriculture and Horticulture Committee, and then from there it led me to serve on the board. And so it just felt really important for me to find a way to give back for all of the giving that had been done to help us get going. And again, for just my story, there are hundreds and hundreds of other stories of master gardeners who have helped community members be successful with growing, their own either backyard gardens or just, keeping their own landscaping in appropriate shape. The agriculture, as you can imagine, I won't mention any more about that, but, there are lots and lots of agricultural endeavors out there that it's a difficult living. It really is. And to have the Research and Extension Office be a support to that is pretty amazing. The senior programs and the low-income support classes and systems in place for single parents, that's a little bit more invisible to us on a daily basis, but I think of all the low-income residents that we have that gain support from classes and learning how to gain some skills as, a single mom or a single parent and a young parent is highly important to become a successful citizen and hopefully eventually to become employed as a citizen in our county. The community projects that are done and the money management that is offered is a huge benefit to our citizens. The 4-H programs that help our youth learn to become strong decision-making citizens through whatever projects that they do is a fabulous program as well. And locally owned businesses have really, really benefited by some of the programs that the County Extension Office has supported through business development and giving them tools to market their, what we used to call mom and pop shops, but to compete with corporate endeavors can be really difficult if you're owning your own business. And there have been really wonderful business development programs that have been offered, and I was lucky enough to be able to benefit from that as well, because it's very different to just grow the food if you don't know how to market it. You have to be able to do all of that. So I just wanted to thank you for your time today and let you know that this is just, as you probably already know, it's a wonderful gem in our community to have a Research and Extension Office here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I answer any questions or attempt?
Well, just Candace, as the still new director of K-State Extension in Shawnee County, I know that there's still a lot of people that think about Extension as being, you've got to live on a farm or you've got to own a cow. But we do so many more things that are not related to a rural lifestyle. What are some of the things that K-State Extension does to really dispel or break that mindset?
Well, and so we don't try to dispel our agriculture and what we do for that community, because we're there and we're there to support them as we always have. But we really do try to push through social media the other programs that we're offering. We work with our community partners like Lisa and her programs, because we have to find a way to reach those people that we're not reaching. We don't have a marketing PR person in our office, so it is a little home done. But our Facebook, Ariel has gotten us on Instagram, which is awesome. And yeah, that's one of my goals as director, is to push our message out even further than we have before, because there are a lot of people, when I say I work at the Extension Office, they're like, what's that? And I'm like, it's amazing. Okay, do you have 20 minutes? Let's talk.
The other question I had was, with all of the construction work that was happening at the Stormont Vail Event Center, you guys were really working around the construction crews, or they were working around you. And I know that you're probably glad to see that coming to a close, but is the space still working out for you, physical, where you guys are located?
Yes, the space is still working out for us. I think we made it through construction pretty well, considering at that time we weren't having people come into our office. So I think, if we'd have had our plant sale like normal or things like that, there would have been more issues than what we did have. We only got a little bit of our parking lot redone, but I'll talk to Kellen about that.
Okay. Questions?
With everything kind of being shut down last year, did you see a drop in numbers in like master gardeners and things like that?
I'll have Ariel speak to that. I did see a drop in 4-H enrollment, so that is something that we're going to have to come back from. A lot of youth. We did have a county fair last year. It just wasn't in person. Kids dropped off their things, they got judged, and then picked them up. And a lot of families, they were like, well, I don't want to spend all year to do that, even though we knew it was for 1 year.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ariel Whiteley-Knoll, I'm the horticulture agent for the Shawnee County Extension Office. We saw actually an increase in response line calls. So the number that I showed you is 634. We had 739 last season, but for the month of April, I thought the pandemic was going to end in April. So I took all the questions myself, and so I didn't count those towards our response line, but if I'd included them, we actually went up about 12% in our response line calls. Volunteer hours were down by about half. The first few months of the pandemic, we completely shut down. We weren't meeting. We were only answering calls. We weren't really doing anything else. The second half of the pandemic is when we really kicked in with the webinars and some opportunities that our volunteers could get hours in. They did also start working in the demonstration gardens outdoors when we got the guidance from the health department that that would be a safe activity to do. But overall, we had around 5,000 volunteer hours in 2020, which is about half of what we expect for our organization.
I noticed that a lot of people where they were home a lot started gardening and doing things, little home projects. So that part of it probably increased quite a bit.
It did, and I can say that our local nurseries are also experiencing quite an influx. We're actually behind on nursery stock because so many people bought plants last year. So it was a great year to be in horticulture from home last year because so many people were starting those endeavors.
So how's the community garden going at the train?
It's going really, really well. I don't have our numbers for what we've donated so far this year, but one thing that we've added to our community garden in 2021 is Candace touched on the over $9,000 in grants that we received, and that was all new grants in 2020, so not things that we'd had previously. And one that we got was for an accessible raised bed at our community garden, and we were able to purchase 4 very expensive raised beds through a grant. And then also mulch that is wheelchair accessible. And now we have 12 clients, 1 from Vail and the other 11 from Breakthrough Clubhouse, that are coming out and working with our Extension Master Gardeners, learning how to do a community garden. And then they're taking that produce that they're growing back to the Breakthrough Clubhouse. So that's been a wonderful addition to our community garden, which is also still growing food and donating it to local food pantries.
Very good. Any other questions for Extension?
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And you didn't need the extra 5 minutes.
I didn't even go that fast, I don't think.
No.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Well, we got a 2-minute break.
usually,
It could be, I don't know. I'll bet it is. But I've got my picture, I've got a personal picture from my gallery on there, but then this is on top of it.
It might be a screenshot.
I'll look into that.
good thought.
Yeah.
I need a junior high kid.
I know.
That's
I miss
right,
my
that's what
kids.
you need.
I miss my kids living at home
My
because
son,
of this.
he'd figure this out in a second.
Is the Fair Association ready?
Are we ready, Jason?
We are ready for the Fair Association.
That's correct.
You're up.
All right. First of all, gentlemen, thank you for your time and patience. I do not envy your position at this time as you're handing out lots and lots of money to lots of people who really want it. The purpose of the Shawnee County Fair is twofold. We provide an opportunity for 4-H, FFA, and other interested individuals to showcase their work and the progress that they've made in various projects over the year. Along with that, our other goal is to produce a fun, family-centered event that's entertaining and enjoyable for not just for the 4-Hers and other individuals, but for the community at large. We set the stage for potential state competition and national level competition for 4-H and FFA members, and we share experiences with the community, be those experiences be events that take place on our stage, vendors that come out to our fair and ply their wares, displays the various project work that's been done over the year, and much, much more. We are working through the year to get more recognition and awareness, not within the city of Topeka, but within the community at large, as a family-friendly event, as a venue for people to come out and see. For many years, for many years, a lot of people thought of this simply as the Shawnee County 4-H Fair. And we have been working for many years to change that point of view, that it's not just 4-H, it's not just FFA, but it's everybody in the community. And we've done that by advertising and heavily promoting our open class. You do not have to be a 4-H member or an FFA member to have a project to show at the fair. If you have any kind of set of skills that you wish to have displayed, bring it out. We would love to show everybody. The events from the last 18 months have worn very heavily on a lot of us. And we are finally starting to come out from under that point where things are starting to look like what may be normal again. As such, the fair for this year has been working very hard to produce an event that's as close to normal as we can get. We're working with our partners, primarily 4-H, to put together a wonderful display in Landon Arena. We also will have things going on in Manor Conference Center, as well as Domer Arena, our usual haunt for the livestock shows. And we hope to have a large turnout and a sign that comes back and says, things are coming back to where they should be. With that in mind, we will turn around and present our request for budget for 2022. To be blunt, we are asking for approximately $88,500 from the commission. And the primary reason for such a large request is that we have received information very recently from the Stormont Vail Event Center, considering how much it's going to cost us next year to rent the venue. That price has gone up significantly. We plan every year for certain price increases to happen. The event center has a cost of living increase for their personnel. There are certain materials that go up in price every year, and we try to account for that during our budget discussions. This year, or next year, with Expo Hall being completed and the construction being done around Stormont Vail Event Center, we have found out that the rental cost for the entire facility is going to increase. In some cases, small amounts. Domer Arena will go up approximately $200 a day. Landon Arena will go up about $500 a day. The biggest price increase comes from Expo Hall, which is going to go up $1,500 a day for our rental. That's where the largest part of our rental, that's the biggest part of our expense increase looking into next year. We also have a few minor ones. Insurance goes up every year. I mean, talk to your car insurance dealer. The prices change all the time. We're not immune to that. There are certain smaller things that come up as well. We do have equipment that needs to get repaired, and we've had to budget for that this year. And, excuse me, the cost of event insurance for us to have the fair and to bond our treasurer is also going to go up next year. A little bit, not very drastic. We're kind of used to that. But these are the little itty bitty cost increases that in the end we all have to look for. If you look at the second page of our budget proposal, we were asking for a total apportionment of $83,500, and based on the income that we can safely project now, we would have a total budget of about $88,500. Our total expenses that we can actively forecast out to this point would end up around $87,975. We have a small little reserve that we've been able to hang on to because of events from last year. We didn't have to go and rent Expo Hall or the Expo Center like we usually do. However, the cost of renting a couple of buildings for a longer period of time compared to the relatively short time that we have them for the fair was kind of a trade-off that we hadn't expected. Along with that, we went through and we bought safety equipment, lots of hand sanitizer, lots of masks, everything that we could do to help what we were able to do based off of 4-H regulations, county rules, state regulations, just to try to make everything as safe as possible so that we could have something to showcase. And a lot of that included, for the very first time, finding out the event center can stream events. For the first time in the history of the fair, we actually had a lot of stuff online. And we got a lot of positive feedback from that. If I can't be there to see the livestock show in person because of COVID, I'd like to be able to go out and see it. We had a company that came out and streamed it for us along with the event center, and that was very well received. We would like to continue, we're trying to do that again this year, and we would like to continue offering that as part of that way to try to expand our presence in the community. If you can't come to the fair, sit down in front of your computer, pick up your phone, go out to this website, and you can see it from there. And hopefully we can draw more people in to see everything in person. Because, yes, as much as fun as it is to have this in front of you all the time, there's nothing better than seeing it in person. So, all in all, we appreciate the support and attention and the time that you give not only to the fair, but to everything else in Shawnee County. And we duly invite you to come up to the fair Saturday night for the 4-H Family Fun Night. Bring your families, come along and mingle with 4-H families, 4-H livestock buyers, and other people who work so hard to put this thing together. And at this point, if you have any questions, I'm available.
Questions for Mr. Schultz?
How many days does the fair go on?
Well, the fair itself, I guess that depends on what you're asking about the fair. We have a 4-H horse show the weekend before. That runs Saturday and Sunday. That's traditionally the start of the activities at the event center. Then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is set up, and the fair proper runs Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The dates for the fair this year are July 22nd to the 25th. And I used to have the ones for next year off the top of my head, and I can't do that anymore.
Other questions for Mr. Schultz? Betty?
I would just make a comment for you commissioners. The summary that you have of the requests does not have their request amount on here. We just received the request this morning, so this amount is just showing what it was last year. I put
Okay.
a place setter in there.
Okay.
We will correct this and get that.
Okay.
We'll update it and get that to you.
I have a quick question.
Yes, Mr. Mays?
So on your income, you've just got the vendors' fees and the sponsors. So is there no other income from like concession sales or
That
pony
whole-
rides or anything like that, or?
We generally do not sell pony rides. When we do have, say, a petting zoo, it's free. All of the income that we have is listed there. We charge our vendors we charge our indoor vendors a small fee, plus whatever else the event center may charge. They have certain things. For example, if your booth wants electricity, the event center charges for electricity. We collect the funds and we have to turn around and give that back to the event center.
So what kind of vendors do you typically have? For the $2,000, I mean, how many vendors is that and what types of vendors typically?
Our vendors run the gamut. They're usually small businesses who simply want a place to come out and showcase their wares. We have 2 years ago, before COVID hit, we had vendors selling everywhere from Tupperware to nail treatments to goat's milk, soaps and cheeses. We had the United States Marines came out. We offer vendor slots for not-for-profit organizations, so groups like the Topeka Gem and Mineral Society, the American Red Cross came out. Stormont Vail brought out a demonstration for diabetes testing and treatment, which I found very interesting because I am a diabetic. If you can, basically, we offer a 8-foot by 3-foot table and a spot for them to set up. And
You ever do food trucks or anything
yes,
like that?
we do have food trucks that come through occasionally. Being one of these smaller venues, it's generally difficult to find food trucks that are willing to come out and do our fair. We do find them on occasion. We have a couple online for this year who really want to come out. Whether that's they want to come out because everybody's sick and tired of being cooped up at home, or they're seriously interested in being part of our fair, we'll take it. We're not gonna look away.
And then also, I know a lot of other county fairs have carnivals and stuff. Is that, I know we haven't had one at least for quite a while. Is it more of a liability thing, or is that cost more, or does it raise money?
It would cost more if we were able to bring a carnival in. The problem with us having a carnival in recent years has been the fact that the Expo Center, I'm sorry, I will eventually get this straight, the Events Center.
We all do that, by
Yes.
the way.
Please forgive me for saying this. It has always been the Kansas Expo Center and will always be the Kansas Expo Center, but that's just me. The Event Center has had a carnival coming in Memorial Day weekend. And that carnival has a right of non-compete for 3 months on either end of their show. That 3 months ends up right after the fair. Now, that right for non-compete means if we want to have a carnival we have to use them. We would have no problem with that, except for the fact that that part of their tour, they're on the other side of the country. And it doesn't make sense for them to drop everything, run all the way back over here for 4 days, and then run right back over to continue their tour. With the renovations to Expo Center, to Expo Hall, we would like to get some carnival games, some bouncy houses, something that we could do to try to bring a carnival atmosphere to the fair. During doing some research, we have found that there are companies that provide just games or bouncy houses or things like that. It won't be the big, colorful, flashy Ferris wheel or the tilt-a-whirls or things like that, but at least something to bring a carnival-like air back to the county fair. We want that too. A fair without games and noises like that, yeah.
What kind of numbers do you expect? It's kind of,
Usually, in years prior, we've had estimates around anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 people that come through the fair during those 4 days. It's really hard to keep count because we don't do tickets, we don't charge admission, we don't have counters at every possible door counting who all comes in and out. But there have been times where we've sat down with a video camera and counted people just to get ballparks. This year, with the COVID restrictions just lifting and the fact that the things haven't quite settled all the way yet, we don't know what to expect. We've got a pretty good feeling the numbers are going to be down just because, hey, again, this is like last year. We're still trying to figure out what's going on. But we're hoping that next year things will be more stable. We'll have a better idea of what's going on, and it can only get better from here.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We have about 10 minutes till Stormont Vail Event Center.
Boy, Susie did a great job setting this up. Like,
It is 11:30 and budget presentation for the Stormont Vail Event Center. Kellen, you're on.
Good morning, Commissioners. Afternoon, morning, I think it's still morning. Kellen Seitz, Spectre Venue Management, Stormont Vail Event Center. What we have submitted to you is our budget narrative. That is the 3-page narrative document kind of outlining what our budget entails, as well as our budget spreadsheets. Some things to note for this year. Obviously, we're coming out of COVID-19. We weren't as drastic in some of our projections going into from 2020 into 2021. We are starting to see a little bit of a shift in the model. We're seeing sales increase a little bit across the board with our events that we do have on sale and hosting. We're seeing a lot of movement in the marketplace with events coming back online and getting a lot of that event content into the later months of 2021. We are forecasting that will probably continue into 2022. We've already started working on a number of events that are taking place in 2022. So good news on the horizon there. Some things I did want to point out. Our budget request for this year for the net operating revenues is about $802,000 versus the fiscal year 2020 actuals, where we came in at about 1.39 million there. Obviously 2020 being a COVID year, significantly impacted revenues for the space. We were shut down for the majority of the year. About 9 months of that we were inoperational, not producing events in any of the spaces. The 2019 actuals was a subsidy of $933,000. So we are requesting quite a bit of a change from 19 and 20. There is a little increase from 2021's request, about $50,000 in the operating allocation. Those are things that help us bolster staff. We've added some staffing positions. We've readjusted some staffing positions and trying to be as economical and certainly as approachable to our operation as we possibly can, knowing that we are operating on county tax funded dollars. One thing we did add into this request that would be different from the past years is a request for capital outlay. So we've added in a $200,000 line item for capital outlay. Over the past 3 years, we have not requested any capital funds. Part of that due to the fact that when we took over management in 2017, there were some additional funds that were put into an account that helped offset some of the management costs from the former management company, as well as that capital outlay budget that was in place in 2017. So we had some reserve there that we've been operating on for our capital outlay for the past few years. That budget amount, I believe, is around 150 in that account, and then our current capital outlay account is about 115. The additional 200,000 request will be used in years future for things like repairs and replacement of the roof at Landon Arena. Will be used for resealing, restriping the new parking lots to make sure that those are kept up and on pace for the years in the future. This request is not anything that is an immediate need. The request wouldn't satisfy the amount needed to replace the roof over the next year. But if we do get that $200,000 request in addition to a request for 2023, I think we'll be in a place there where we can look at repairing that and replacing that roof. I don't know if Betty, you've had anything to add on that?
I might add a little bit too. What we've also done in the past is this fund that he's requesting the 200,000 from, that is for owner responsibility items, like if there's repairs that are the owner's responsibility, then that fund would be used for that also. So not only just capital improvement type items, but capital repairs that we would be responsible for as the owner of the facility.
Correct. A couple things to note. When we're building this budget, we didn't feel like 2021 was a fair year to look at. Obviously, our request was a little bit different than in years past. So we took 2020's budget and we compared 2022's budget to the actual 2020 request. So you can see in the event operating income for the 2020 budget year, our event revenues are projected a little bit lower than 2020, but only by about $28,000. And when we compare that to 2019, it's a significant increase on event operating revenue that we're projecting to receive. That's an increase of over $328,000 versus 2019. So we were very aggressive in 2020. Obviously 2020 was a tough year for everybody, but just using that as a comparison, we are projecting to be quite a bit better than we were in 2019, certainly trying to not look as much at 2020. From the indirect expense side, that's all of our expense costs, staffing costs, building, licensing and insurance, and all of those costs that take to operate the facility, including utilities. There is an increase compared to 2020 budget of $150,000 and an increase of 2019 at $391,000. Part of that is because we've added a few staffing positions within our operation. We've tried to bolster up certain departments that have been short-staffed, one in our events department, two in our operations department, and then three, you'll remember last year we added in an equine and livestock manager position that was formerly kind of a joint position between operations and events, and really tried to isolate that out to make sure we're covering the needs of all of our equine and livestock content that takes place in Domer Arena. If you'll recall, for 2021, we did not take any merit raises for our employees. We typically do a 3% merit raise, but due to COVID and the budget for 2021, we wanted to be as responsible as we could. We did not take those in 2021. We are proposing to add those back in 2022. Advertising and sponsorship revenues, we are seeing and budgeting for a pretty significant increase there. We are over $36,000 increase versus the 2020 budget, and about $200,000, just shy of $200,000 increase versus the 2019 budget. And that's all of our revenues from partnerships, sponsorships at the building, things like Stormont, Vail Health, things like Schindel Lawn and Landscape, Sky Zone, all of our partners that sponsor key areas within the building. Prairie Band is another large one. Kyler and his team have been working very hard to get that partnership activation bolstered back up into this year, and we are seeing some success rates. We've got a couple key pieces of business, one of which is negotiated all the way through. We'll be presenting you a contract with that here in the next couple of weeks. That's for our advertising rights to our pouring partners, so our beer and beverage partner that'll be at the facility. Another is a key printing company in town that does a lot of our sign printing work. And so both of those contracts will be coming your way over the next couple weeks, and those will be long-term contracts, at a minimum of 3 years or more. As I talked about earlier in this discussion, the booking landscape looks very promising. We are seeing quite a bit of uptick, especially in the concert segment. I know I've spoken on that over the past couple of months with how concerts have really started to kind of come back around and come online. Over the past 3 years, we saw a pretty good shift in our family show content. Those shows did significantly well for our facility, a little bit better than regional trends and some national trends. With Baby Shark, that didn't really hold true. We don't know yet if that was a little bit of the COVID landscape or a little bit of that product, but we have some family show content that is looking to come in 2021 and 2022, and we've already started taking holds on that content as well. But for the booking landscape itself, Cirque du Soleil announced their return out of bankruptcy. We're in active communications and talks with their department about getting some of that content back in 2022. So hopefully we can land some key pieces of business like that to keep us moving forward. But I think one of the big areas of untapped potential is in our exhibition hall space. We are actively pursuing 3 contracts, 2 really notably and working very closely with Visit Topeka and the GTP on getting a couple key pieces of sporting business in the marketplace that have never been here before. One in the tennis sector and the other in the bicycling and BMX segment. So those are 2 pieces of content that we're chasing and hope that we can land those for 2022 and 2023 and beyond. So happy to answer any of your questions that you might have regarding the budget or any kind of the future of the space.
I was going to ask about our conventions and whether or not we were looking at, I know the conventions are usually booked out 2 to 3 years in advance, sometimes 5 years in advance, and I didn't know how long it was going to take before we start to see a return of some of those convention spaces.
Yeah, we're already starting to see it. You're right. That business segment does typically book out on a 4 to 5 to sometimes even a 6 and 7 year window ahead of time. Bree Bergeron is our convention and sales manager. She works very closely every week with Visit Topeka, mainly Jessica Schenkel and Mike Bell over at Visit Topeka on chasing 2 different types of business. Jessica obviously does their conventions, traveling, tourism, exhibition type content, and Mike Bell does more of their sporting side. So those pieces are active and ongoing. We have been able to win a couple key pieces of business for the coming years. Some dog shows, some religious events that have been partnered with Visit Topeka and are looking forward to more opportunities like that.
How did Baby Shark turn out?
Turned out okay. We ended up taking a loss on the event. We had about a little over 800 people in the door, a little over 780 tickets paid for that. Certainly not the numbers that we're typically used to in the family show segment. Most of those family shows were doing anywhere between 1,500 up to 2,500 tickets paid. So quite a bit lower than the norm. Not a huge loss for the facility, but certainly every event that we produce, we want it to be a winner. We want to try and generate revenues, which obviously go to further reducing the operational subsidy. But for the budget for this year, we are projecting and forecasting out a pretty good return. A lot of that due in part to the fact that we've got a lot more content coming in later in the year, but also certainly some of the vaccination clinic proceeds that are going to be coming through as part of the ARPA funding.
Okay.
You might talk about how you're going to handle parking in the future with the with the app and
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So parking. We launched a lot of new products and services throughout COVID. A lot of those were acquired through CARES Act money to help reduce physical contact between our staff and the patrons that attend our events. The parking is kind of an all-encompassing product, right? We're trying to reduce cash handling in the parking lot, which reduces the need for additional security staff out in the parking lot and or TPD or Shawnee County Sheriff's there to make sure our cash handling procedures are both secure and being done correctly. So the parking infrastructure itself has 2 facets. You can pre-purchase your parking either through Ticketmaster when you purchase your ticket, or you can go directly through the parking site, which is Park Mobile and Park Hub, and purchase your ticketing, your parking passes that way in advance. We do have those handheld systems that take cashless payment, anything from credit cards, debit cards, Android Pay, Apple Pay, Google Pay, any of the electronic payment services, and process those in the parking lot if patrons had not purchased their parking in advance. One thing we are looking at doing is restructuring how we ingress the parking flow. For Baby Shark, we had a 1-line ingress that split into 2 when we were processing those payments. For Hank Jr., we were taking a different approach. Obviously, we saw kind of how that situation went. We're doing a 2-lane ingress off of Topeka Boulevard and a 2-lane ingress off of 21st Street. And we are having 2 lanes that wrap all the way around that center island, go down to the service drive, so we can get more cars in and process those payments in a little bit more timely manner.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, the carnival, we just heard from the Fair Association about the inability to have any kind of a carnival set up at that because of the contractual arrangement that you guys have with the other carnival.
Correct.
Is there any real good solution to that?
You know, we can request, we work very closely with Evans Carnival. They typically produce their content in May. May this year was not going to work with their schedule and their touring schedule. One, COVID related, two, timing and employment related with having enough staff to produce Carnival. As we move forward into the future, you know, we've been working very closely with the Fair Board. I think we can probably make it work. We will have to negotiate out in our contract with Evans Carnival their non-compete clause that falls within that window. And that's not unique just to carnivals. It's very standard with, you know, our concerts. It's very standard with the circus, you know, in particular. The circus that we have with the Shrine Association, we don't produce any circus outside of theirs within a 5-month window. So you'll see a circus produced in in February, and then once we hit June, July, we typically have another circus with a different contractor that takes place. So that way they're spaced out enough, they're not cannibalizing each other with ticket sales, but also make sure that the revenues for each of those groups that are producing that content is healthy. So I think the answer to that question is yes, I think we can make it work. We'll just have to get creative on how we negotiate that with our current contractor for the carnival.
Okay, thanks.
We also heard from the Fair Association that their rent was going to be going up somewhat due to the new space or the renovated space.
Yeah.
Do we see that across the board with all of the rentals for the Stormont Vail Event Center?
In the exhibition hall space, yes. We increased the rental fee there for that exhibition hall based on a square footage calculation. It's not an absorbent amount of increase. It's the same square footage calculation on a rent basis that we had prior to the renovation, just with the added square feet of space that they'll use in the exhibition hall. We typically increase those rates before the renovation every 2 years, so that every 2 years one of the spaces would see a rate increase, whether it be Land and Arena or exhibition hall. We have held off on our increase to Land and Arena, and we're actively working with our producers and promoters because we know that increase is likely oftentimes not budgeted for. So we try and give them either a break on that year so that they can get those increases budgeted into their forecast for the years to come. Certainly it's not something that we hold them to. We try and negotiate and work with our clients and producers and event partners as much as possible to make sure that they can afford the space that they're renting, but also generate enough return that it makes it a good investment on their end.
You said every 2 years?
Every 2 years is what we've traditionally done before the renovations, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are you get along with the new facility? Things,
It's
any
going great.
hiccups?
It's going great. Yes, certainly hiccups, you know, here and there, and you find what works. I think the main piece for us was Baby Shark was a really good test run to see how a lot of those new systems worked, what the pitfalls were with those systems. You know, we can get folks in the building a lot faster than we have traditionally been able to do with the new magnetometer system. One of the things we saw is we can get them through the mags really quickly. Those new self-service ticket scanning pedestals take a little bit more involvement. Those new ticket scanning pedestals have a piece of infrastructure called an RFID recognition tool inside that pedestal. So a lot of the tickets that Ticketmaster is now producing came from coded. They're not barcoded, so they're not a scannable ticket. It's a ticket that is recognized. How? Don't ask me, but it's a ticket that's recognized when it gets delivered to your mobile device. You just hold your mobile device next to that ticket scanning pedestal and it recognizes that that's your ticket, scans you in, and gets you into the facility. So we have seen a little bit there where we need to spend a little bit more time, maybe space those areas out a little bit because it gets a little bit bogged down at the ticket scanning. For the tickets that do have scannable barcodes or QR codes, we also got an additional allotment from Ticketmaster of handheld scanners that we can use for our staff to help speed that process through, especially at door opening times when we get very busy, to help get people in as quickly as possible. The parking was another big one. We found out the system that we thought was going to be really good for Baby Shark wasn't quite as good as it could be. So we've restructured that, making sure that we're, again, trying to get folks in as quickly as possible, but as responsibly as possible as well.
You have many items left on the punch list, or you about there?
Not too much on the punch list. There's some landscaping stuff that's still getting finished up in between Cap Plaza Hotel and the new exhibition hall space. The center island just kind of got finished up last week and seeded. So we're excited to see that starting to go up and look a little bit more green than it currently looks now. So, but in terms of the operation, the functionality of the facility, we couldn't be happier with the way it's currently operating. I think the new sound system, the new PA system, the video and light packages that were produced inside the space certainly add a lot of entertainment value. One thing that we are still working to get to that I think is going to be a very key and instrumental piece is our upper balcony masking curtains. Just to kind of give you an idea, for Hank Jr., we rented a backstage curtain drop, which these upper balcony curtains can be rehung and re-pick pointed on the ceiling grid and on the rigging grid to produce a backstage curtain for events where we don't need the upper balcony curtains to mask off that upper bowl area. That cost is about $3,500. It has ranged anywhere in the past between $2,000 and now this one being one of our higher costs at $3,500 for that backstage curtain. So, those upper balcony masking curtains will add a lot of value to things like, our smaller concerts. We're working on a concert right now for a Christian artist for December 4th. It's going to be a Christian Christmas concert. They only need a set for about 3,000 people. So, our facility, when it's full occupancy, is about 6,800 capacity. So if we can get those curtains in there, certainly adds to the value of not only the intimacy of the event, but also the production value and the sound quality inside the space as well.
Any questions?
Are you seeing a return of all of your sort of typical annual events? I mean, and are you having any pushback with the increase in pricing?
Not too much outside the norm of some sticker shock, but again, we work with those producers to maybe instead of doing a full increase, we do a partial increase and then allow them to budget for that full increase for years in the future. On the return of our annual events, yes, we are seeing those come back. In fact, I'll have a contract in front of you here again in the coming weeks alongside those partnership contracts for the extension of Kansas Kids Wrestling. That event was canceled 2 years in a row. They were the first event to be canceled due to COVID back in the early parts of 2020, but also due to the fact that we were not able to produce that content in March of 21, not only just because of the vaccine clinic, but certainly at the capacity that they were wanting to do the event, it just didn't work within our current guidelines that we had. So, we lost 2 years on that contract. We had 2 years remaining on that contract after the 2 years that were lost. We got the 2 years that are remaining on the contract, but we were also able to get through association and joint partnership with Visit Topeka and some pitches, and I think Commissioner Rippon was even in on those as well. We were able to secure the additional 2 years that were lost. So part of the reason we're bringing a lot of these contracts before you for your approval is that the contracts that we're bringing to you outlive our current management agreement. So we need to make sure that you're okay with us contracting those events or contracting those partnership sponsors as they would effectively at the current moment until we get to renewal discussions and contract extension discussions outlive our current management agreement.
Good. Well, very good. Thank you, Kellen.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
Kellen, did you have
yeah.
any?
One is going to be the roof replacement at Landon Arena. That CIP request is estimated in the $600,000, a little over $600,000 mark. I actually didn't print that out, Betty, because I apologize. I didn't know we were going to be talking about that today. But yes, that roof replacement at Landon Arena would be the main focus. One of the CIP request items that had been on in years past, we actually got to take care of during the renovation project, and that was the replacement of the chilled water system and the 2 main chillers, which were done as part of some contingencies that we had left over in the renovation project. Betty, there's 2 more on there.
You also had Heritage Hall.
Yep, Heritage.
That was at $275,000.
Yeah, so Heritage Hall, that would be the HVAC foundation and roofing repairs. $275,000 is our estimate on that. I believe you actually gave us permission to go ahead and do that during last year's budget cycle, and you'll have to forgive me since I've been doing the capital improvement requests wrong all along for the last 3 years. So Betty and Jennifer helped talk me through that process just this past week. But the way we had been presenting that 5-year CIP outlay plan, what I had assumed that would be funding from the county's capital outlay account to take care of those repairs. I think the way it was approved was to go ahead and approve that for repair, but coming out of our capital outlay account, which currently would not satisfy the amount needed to repair some of those items.
Well, and that is in 2023, that particular item. But another item for 2022 that you had was the portable chairs for Landon and Exhibition Hall of $290,000.
Yep. So the other CIP request, as Betty mentioned, was our chair usage, and those chairs, if you've been in the facility, are original to the build out. They're red plastic chairs, as well as the red padded chairs that go on the floor for our arena events. Part of what we wanted to do was increase the aesthetic of those chairs. To be 100% honest, they allow us to produce events in a little bit more upscale fashion versus having a red plastic chair and a very nicely clothed table for dinner events and functions and lunch events. We do a lot of those at the facility, not only for things like the governor's inaugural ball, the GTP annual luncheons, the State of the Community address, the Best of Prep awards, but also things like 2030 gala, weddings that take place in Heritage Hall. A lot of those events will rent out chairs that have just a little bit better aesthetic and add some value to that production of those events.
Is there any value to the current chairs? I mean, are we able to, if we buy new ones, are we able to get something out of the old ones?
You know, I'm sure we would. To what amount, I don't have that estimate off the top of my head. I can certainly get with our team and work on that. But they're not bad chairs. They're just, outdated. They're functional. They work for what we need them to do. They just don't look the prettiest. And certainly for some of those events that are a little bit more of an upscale feel, they just don't add to the value of that.
Okay, and then also on the capital improvements, would the curtains not go under capital improvements, or the new turf that we might need to buy?
Yeah, so those could go under capital improvements. Those are some pretty big ticket items. The upper balcony masking curtains are about $200,000. The turf estimates that we've received have been anywhere from $90,000 up to about $300,000, just depending on the type of turf. We certainly can add those in as CIP requests. Some of that we were trying to take care of with contingency funds through the renovation project. Unfortunately, that fund did not allow for us to acquire those materials, but yeah, certainly things we can add in.
Yes, definitely
future.
things that should be added, because if there's anything you're looking at the next 5 years,
Yeah,
they need to be on here, even if it, is 3-4 years out.
Sure.
then They need to be on here. And yes, we were hoping to include some of that in the renovation project, and instead we went.
Well, I remember we talked
Instead,
about
we
the
went the route
curtains.
of the chiller, which I
Right.
think
Yeah.
made more sense to go that route.
Well, absolutely.
But, it was kind of a which way do you go, the chiller, which we had not budgeted, or these other items. I
Yeah.
think we made the right decision.
I think
but-
absolutely we made the right decision, not only for the functionality of the space and the lifelong, deferred maintenance that had taken place on the chillers that were original to the building, with the exception of one that was rebuilt just a few years after the building was live. That chilled water system adds a tremendous amount of cost savings value. They're much more energy efficient. They're zonable chillers. They're, I think, 4 chilling towers that break down into different spaces. Very similar to the boiler project. Whenever we needed to chill a space with the old system, we had to kick up a main chiller that was meant to be utilized for, chilling a 45,000 square foot exhibition hall just to chill office space. So we've broken those out, we've zoned those out, and they certainly will have their return on their investment in a very short time period.
So if you will get those to us, we will
Yeah.
add those.
Okay, I certainly will.
Anything else? All right.
Good.
All right, thanks, everybody. Enjoy the 4th.